Hey everybody, welcome to Spoilers Intended. We are a podcast about series and films. We are doing a quick reactions to episode 7 of The Acolyte. There are going to be spoilers everywhere. This week, I'm actually joined by both of my hosts this time, Steven and Ryan. We have 15 minutes on the clock. Spoilers are going to be everywhere. If you haven't seen the episode, go watch it. And let's start.
Timer's running, boys. Let's go.
Okay, so clearly you guys weren't here last week, but you did watch last week's episode.
Yeah, correct.
So we're just gonna we're not
we're
even
caught
gonna
up
go.
on the show.
Yeah,
We're
caught up on the
yeah.
show. I'll definitely say I think this was a very good episode. However, it comes at a really bad time of being the penultimate episode of the whole series.
Imagine, if you will, if 2 of the episodes of this season were divided up in small chunks spread out across the season.
Right.
I agree with you. I actually think this is one of the better episodes.
This was actually a pretty compelling episode to watch.
I disagree.
Well, that's fine. Like okay. When I
continue with your point, I just wanted to point that out real quick.
I'll just say that this is still a very low bar to clear.
Sure.
The show at this point, I don't think is savable from a narrative perspective.
The pacing is an absolute wreck.
But seeing it from the perspective of the Jedis instead of 2 children definitely made it a lot better.
It did.
I just think that it would have been better somewhere else in the series and in the season, besides the penultimate episode.
You don't do a full flashback episode for your penultimate episode unless the flashback is like some serious juicy stuff that's been brewing for a long time or something. That's my whole
problem with the episode is that it did not justify its existence versus just being a flashback in a previous episode.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. If episodes 3 and 7 had been broken up across the season as we went,
would have been fine.
I think we would have had there would have been a ton more speculation. There were some really cool sequences in this episode. I think that if we had seen them earlier on would have helped some of the other episodes out.
For sure.
I will say narratively, I don't think they did a particularly compelling job of making me wonder why, like Kelnaka or Torben would be
susceptible,
guilt-ridden from just guilt-ridden.
Nothing.
Like, what is there to be guilty
episode
about? They possessed you and you fought back. I'm not guilty.
Yeah. Like nothing in this episode happened because that I think is my other biggest complaint, and that's the problem with the episode for me is it's a core issue of like the acting was decent, the child actors still struggle, but it's mostly reused stuff we saw in episode 3 anyways.
Yeah, we've already seen these scenarios basically.
But the problem was like I was waiting the whole time for the other shoe to drop to be like, whoa, what is so bad that these 2 Jedi committed suicide? You know what I mean? Like, or well, the one took the poison, like, yeah, give it to me. And then Kalnaka presumably was killed by the master or whatever.
Yeah. Well, but so this is the other thing too. I think the issue here is, and this just because like you have to buy into the mantra of what Jedi like how they like kind of look at things, and because they partook in essentially a massacre of just a women's coven.
Nah.
Like they were there when a bunch of women
self-defense in this.
Well, no, but that's the thing.
Inside
I agree.
His mind?
Yeah, but that's the thing is like, I don't like from their perspective, they're looking at it from we were part of the team that caused all of this to happen, regardless of whether we were at fault or not.
I mean, they were an instrumental part of it.
I don't think that justifies any of the other stuff that we've seen this season of the only people that should be
don't track.
Yeah, the only people that should be truly guilt-ridden is Saul because he just murdered the mom, just because he, I guess was jumpy or whatever, and then Indara because she murdered everyone else.
Right.
But see, I don't think Indara actually even had any real guilt about it. She just
she did.
So my interpretation of this is she pushed them out of Kelnaka's mind, and whatever they were doing took so much juice to do to overcome his defenses that pushing them out.
Just killed them all.
Like you dabbled in a dark art and it whiplashed.
You paid the price.
Yeah, I can't feel bad for you.
But that's the thing is like clearly she's just like, it happened. This is it, and we're going to tell the council not the same story. And then like she was like already online of just like whatever. Like we're gonna wash our hands of this and we're gonna move on.
Well, I think it's like from that perspective I can see a little bit, but like the bit with Soul where he's supporting the 2 halves of the bridge with the 2 children on it, and it's like
I like that. Yeah.
Well, I get where you feel some guilt of like, hey, I had to make a choice of I could only save one.
Yeah.
But like, by all reports here, you saved the good one, not the evil one. And then
Right.
later on in your life, you find out, oh, hey, she survived. Like, where's your guilt now? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, like they said something about you could split. Was it a soul or a person's personality into
Consciousness.
two consciousness into two halves?
Yeah.
So is the idea that like May is evil and OSHA is good, or is it more like I don't know, like
it certainly feels that way.
That's definitely where they were intending it to be.
but
However, we haven't really seen any kind of real difference with their personalities beyond just normal PTSD.
right. And the only thing
Yeah.
we've really seen from May that we know she's evil is she's trying to kill these people, but she in her downtime doesn't seem very evil. I think that's
she
a very
doesn't.
confusing
Well, and she
thing.
still has conflicting thoughts. So it's like,
Right.
well, if she's supposed to be essentially evil Kid Boo, and you have, Happy Boo over here in OSHA, then like, what are we doing?
Then what do we do?
Because-
Yeah, like what's happening? The other thing
Well,
for me is I
and,
feel
like,
like the go ahead, Steve.
Oh, no, you go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I feel like the biggest emotional moment of this episode was supposed to be when their mother dies, right? But it happened. It was executed in such a sloppy way that not only did
I
I
had
not
no
feel
idea
anything,
what was going
I was
on.
just confused. I was like, okay, so
Right?
she's turning into a smoke monster and she's dead. What
Oh,
happened?
yeah, we went full Lost on this one. And
Well,
like,
and if there was like a scene from earlier episodes where she goes smoke monster and like attacks somebody,
give us some
right?
justification. Or she did.
Then we
She does
know.
it to like do something that's helpful, and then you think, oh, she was doing the smoke thing to go save OSHA. Maybe that was
Right.
the fastest way to get to the room. I
Any
don't
kind
know.
of context for what she was doing to understand the stakes.
Yeah,
But it's
because
like
we
was-
need to sit here and see an example before this kind of like big moments happen. So then you have
Yeah.
general idea of what's happening.
Like, what does
Yeah,
this
like,
mean?
I didn't even know what she was doing, and then it looked like Saul didn't either. And then
Yeah.
he's like, I don't know, I'll stab the smoke, I guess, and he does.
Right?
Like oh, and he's like, that's it. The look on his face was the look on my face. It was like, that, so
It's like-
smoke's allergic to lightsabers. He's
Yeah,
like,
it was like my whole plan there was maybe I'll stab the smoke, and midway through I was like, there's no way that would work, and then it worked, and I'm shocked.
yeah. He looked like, oh, and I'm like, oh.
Well, and also I think that having shown us in this flashback with her interaction with, I'm gonna keep butchering his name, Tommen, whatever his name is,
Corbin.
One of them.
Padawan. In her interaction with him, where she's kind of
That
like
was a cool
creepy,
scene.
like it was cool, but it was like she was very, very creepy, manipulative, controlling. Like it takes away from the impact of her saying, I would have let OSHA go. It's like, are you being manipulative? Are you trying to guilt him now? Because
Right.
like this seems
I
to be
think-
part of the personality.
Yeah, there's the show really like flip flops back and forth with a lot of like really big tonal whiplash.
Yeah,
It feels like it changes what it needs to be based on the episode and doesn't stick to a coherent like train of thought throughout the whole season. Because like if May and OSHA are supposed to be like, the dark side and the light side,
like two poles of the same
they have not
thing.
done a good job conveying that. If the mother, like you're saying, Stephen, was supposed to be genuinely remorseful at the end, I kind of got that when she was talking to the other mothers.
right. So
but then-
with the other parts of the coven, I get the impression, okay, she chooses, I choose to be the mother right now, not the leader. It's like, okay, cool, that's a good line.
Got it. Yeah, it was a good line. But then when she's taking over the Padawan's
Corbin,
mind, it's like, okay, so what is your goal? I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop on that too, of like, okay, so now that she's been in his mind, is
she gonna like possess him or
I get that like they did it with the Kalnaka or whatever, but I was like,
but clearly
I felt like
it took the whole team to make that happen. And I will say that fight was really, really good.
Yeah,
I like
to their credit, the whole twist being, hey, fight your possessed fellow Jedi who's also a Wookiee, and like the two of you can't do this. That was a great, like that's a cool action scene. I think we've kind of hit on that a lot in these reviews of like sometimes the plot and the dialogue doesn't feel well structured. When the action happens, the action's pretty enjoyable, right?
It is, yes.
Yeah, I'd say that
like
for sure.
our justification, where Torvin is like, want to know how I got these scars? Like, yeah, that's a pretty cool story. How you got that scar, buddy? You know,
One
and
that
like,
he cannot tell anyone, which is
right.
why he, meditates for the rest of his life and then drinks poison before speaking.
Well, it's why he continued on from a Padawan to a knight to a master to drinking poison, because you couldn't just walk away from the order at some point. Like, what? Anyway,
maybe when he was like meditating hardcore, he was like in his own mind palace again, like where she took him, and he didn't hear her say it was poison, and he woke up and thought, oh, a shot, and just like,
like took it, like, yeah,
and it was like, this isn't Jägermeister.
Like, yeah, brother.
Thought this was Fireball. Thought we were gonna have a night. Oh no,
it burns.
I will. I mean, like, it's definitely one of those where, like, I do agree that the show really excels whenever they get to the action, just because the choreography and the shots and stuff like that are well done. It's just everything surrounding it is just so messy that,
it is
like,
messy.
anytime
well cleaned up ever.
Yeah, well, anytime like you have someone expositing anything, literally anything, you can see the gears of the dust and the rust just like falling apart,
being ground off.
Yeah,
and
and
it's frustrating too, because there are some good performances from some of the actors, and like the action is good. It's just the underpinnings around it that just falls apart every now and then.
Because I don't care enough about May and Osha's plight.
No,
because as far as we can tell, there really isn't much of a plight.
Well, they haven't even given us enough to make us like them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? I don't know.
And I don't know if, and now Ryan, because you weren't here last week, I'm not sure if you listened to last week's React, but basically I know Nick and I were talking about how last week's episode really felt like that was where the pacing was clearly apparent, that it was like, okay, this needs to be a longer per episode show.
We need some longer episodes here.
Yeah, and I think now what I'm realizing is that this is the penultimate episode of this season, but they're clearly planning a season 2. I have no idea what they could even try to wrap up.
There's no way that they're like the finale for the season is either going to be the biggest, fastest, rushed, messiest thing ever.
Well, because no one's like
season 2. Like, there's no way it's not.
Yeah, because that's the thing, is like everyone is separated right now. You have the Venestra's Jedi group in one place, and you have Saul and May in another. So like that means we all have to have time to get back together some way to have some kind of finale. And like all of this, like if you had basically the end of episode 6 where they were all like meeting in this big epic showdown, and then you have this exposition dump essentially of the backstory of Kamir, cutting in between, talking about it or whatever, or Soul, doesn't matter who, then you have this kind of emotional buildup to go into the next episode, but everyone's separated, so I don't know where we're going.
And that's the thing, is like go ahead,
pieces together. I mean, that was all in my life, just echoing what Andrew was saying.
It's going to take 20 minutes to get everyone together, unless
in my head, I really went into this episode thinking, okay, what this is going to be is like the first 10 15 minutes is going to be Soul recounting to May what happened, right? That's it. Then the next 10 15 minutes is going to be Osha dealing with what's his Kamir. Kamir and that whole situation, either being, seduced to the dark side or not. And then the other part's going to be the Jedis showing up to try to find them, getting on their trail, whatever. It's going to be, the pieces are falling into place so that by the end of the episode, everyone's back in the central location. And so, episode 8 can be, boom, let's see what happens. Instead, this entire episode was the flashback, which I didn't expect. And once we got like past the halfway point, I was like, oh, okay.
It's just the whole thing. Yeah.
It like jumped from the flashback of everything happening like in the Coven fortress or whatever to the ship going through hyperspace. I was like, oh, did we just jump back to no, we're still flashback.
We're still there.
I had the same thought.
Yeah.
1 minute left. Final thoughts here.
I mean, I have no idea. I don't think narratively this show is going to be able to stand on its own without a second season, and I definitely don't think that they're going to make a second season because of how poorly the show has been received, because it doesn't stand on itself narratively, because it needs a second season.
Yeah, I haven't looked or seen anything about ratings. Has anyone seen anything like this show doing good?
It's very, very poor. Now there is some review bombing in there, which is
I mean, more like
Star Wars
viewership
stuff.
Numbers.
Oh no, I have no idea.
Supposedly it's the second most viewed, but the first most viewed is also supposedly the Kenobi show, which surely not.
That probably is,
like
though.
Mando's right there. Like what the heck? All I gotta say is, the action is great. The plot and dialogue is just consistently a mess. And a big shout out to the Soul and Other Mother fight too, because that was great.
Yeah,
more just fantastic choreography.
So just like give us more of that.
Yeah, please, all of that, just all of that.
Okay, so that is all the time we have. So this is the penultimate 15-minute React episode before we record the finale, which will be a whole series review next week whenever the series ends, and you'll hear from us then.
Yeah, you can hear all of our coherent thoughts in a longer format with better pacing.
Yeah, probably
better dialogue.
But all of our past 15-minute reaction episodes, if you haven't listened to them, are available on spoilersintendedpodcast.com. You should definitely go and check us out if this is your first episode you've ever listened to. I don't know. And
absolutely.
Yeah, so that does sound like all the time we have this week. Until next time, I'm Andrew.
I'm Ryan.
And I'm Steven.
And every spoiler was intended.